And then Ty says, "You guys hear about the small cities land use proposal? Seems effed up to me." Oh, comments just went crazy here. Um, Trying to control everything, the trees and how much livestock you can have, and permits for everything. Oh, wow, boy, we could take
Don't get Stan started.
we could take a left turn here.
Stan's not on our side, Ty.
Well, no, I don't think that I'm not on your side.
No.
I think that's maybe a misinterpretation. I think there's again, back to the quality of the individuals that we find to be in elected official positions. We have people that are making decisions that are beyond their capabilities.
Absolutely, that's
Right?
a for sure. Yeah,
they're not competent in their area of decision making. Therefore, they need to hire third-party consultants to make recommendations to them. And anybody in an elected position is only able to make the best decision they can possibly make based upon the quality of the information they have available to them, right? So if they hire a third-party consulting firm and they come up, they do a $2 million study, and they at the end of these studies, they always pitch you, A, B, or C. It's never a holistic picture. It's A, B, or C typically. And if none of those ideas is really good, or the community consultation is fucking stickers on a wall, it's garbage in, garbage out is essentially what you get, right? And I think so. There was some discussion around Thorhill County and what they're doing with their land use bylaw and really restrictive. The problem with Thorhill County, and it's an endemic problem in a lot of other municipal areas in Alberta, is that where are the facts coming? So the communication coming from the counties is very, very minimal. And so the general public is like up in arms based upon what they've heard on social media. County of Grand Prairie, that we both live in, of course, they're looking to update their land use bylaw. The last time that land use bylaw was updated was 1993. Was it 93? No, it was 2003. That's what it was, because it's 20 years since the last time they updated. So if you think 2003, where was the city of Grand Prairie in perspective to where was the county of Grand Prairie? Like Claremont was actually physically separated from the city. The city itself at that point in time was, I think they struck 100,000 people, but 60% of them were transient population, people that come in for work and then never left and never really paid any taxes, to now being probably 3 times that much, and an actual established population base. The city has now grown. The county's urban area immediately surrounding the city has grown exponentially. Industrial parks, residential areas, a number of recreational facilities, plus the development of, well, easily 40, I would say probably 40 different large-scale rural subdivisions, right? So they'll take 2 or 3/4 sections of land and they'll put 150 houses on there, on a 1.5 or 2 or sometimes 2.5 acre lots. And a lot of those people, they go 2.5 acres. Why wouldn't they want to have a goat or a chicken or whatever? But really, all those people want that live in those large subdivisions, for the greater majority of the population, is to live in some type of an HOA, right? They want a homeowners association. They want to have established boundaries, guidelines. They want to have a lot of fucking lawn to mow, but they don't want to listen to roosters. They don't want to smell. They don't want to smell cow shit. They don't want to. They want to live in town, but
they don't want to see barbed wire fences.
They don't want to see barbed wire fences. They don't want to have their view obstructed by your trees. They don't want to have any of that, right? And so that crowd has a lot of this, and therefore has a lot of speaking power. Quite often, they have the ability and the wherewithal to rub shoulders with all the people that are making political decisions. And the people that are making political decisions, of course, we're all creatures of our environment. If we're surrounded by that kind of noise, that's what we're going to be susceptible to, right? So, yeah. Do I think there's a World Economic Forum thing happening you know, where the folks that all went to Davos are thinking, well, you know what, let's starve the population out by taking their chickens away. I don't think that's factual, but I think there's a lot of people that lack the competence and the general intelligence to make an independent decision that serves the needs of their constituents effectively, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I followed that along pretty good. I definitely agree with a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, I really, just a quick backtrack here. So I was talking about needing controllers to ensure that government spending is going properly. And I guess you could think of that both ways and say, well, you know, these people just, you know, they only want the money to go where they think it should go. And I mean, to a certain degree, that's right. But as long as you have decent morals and the best interests at heart, then maybe that is the way it should go. So back to this land thing, I do truly believe that there are people that should not be responsible for chunks of land.
Well,
I really do believe that
with this that don't have this,
but
they should never be allowed to own large portions of land or livestock or.
Absolutely.
God forbid you allowed them to walk into PV Mart and buy some barbed wire because.
And you know, like, money aside, I mean, just because you can get the financing to get a mortgage on a 5-acre lot and a house and everything, there are people there that can't manage it. And yet again, the same guy that I was talking to, I said, you wouldn't believe we run into this because when we first got inspected by the federal government, is because we got reported for reusing mini bulk bags for animal feed.
Yeah.
When the government came out, they said, well, what you're doing is actually fine. And believe it or not, because my wife's past job and just, you know, being young or whatever, my whole involvement in the oil patch was very heavily safety weighted, and reports and stop cards and JSAs and all these things. Yep. So when we started the feed thing, before we were ever inspected by the government, we had all these forms prepared already.
Pre-established.
Because we are from the cover your ass generation.
Sure.
So we didn't force it on a lot of our customers, but we had it in the background. It all existed. We had tags, we had tag numbers, we had and we actually had a whole procedure for reusing bags. Yeah. If there was blood on them, if they were ripped, if there was feces on them, we didn't reuse them, we threw them away because it becomes a biohazard. All sorts of things. It becomes a safety hazard if the straps are ripped. All of this stuff wasn't worth it. When the government saw that, they were like, "That's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing." The reason I bring this up, you would think that everybody you're dealing with is like-minded. They're all grown-ups. They're all adults. They're all mature. That this won't be an issue. You would not believe the amount of shit that gets returned because somebody doesn't think it's an issue. They had the bag in the back of their truck. They went hunting. They shot an elk. They fucking fired it in the back of the truck. It bled all over the bag. Then they ripped it out over their fifth wheel hitch and ripped a big hole in the side of it. And they bring it back and they say, well, we exchange this bag? And I'm thinking, like, are you fucking nuts?
Are they really that dumb, or do they just lack the integrity?
Well, either way, people exist with a mindset that is so different than what you think should be going on. Which is back to my point of, I don't really think everybody should be responsible or can handle, the responsibility of being in control of 3, 10, 15, 100,000. It doesn't matter how many acres. They don't do it properly. They actually degrade it instead of adding to it, establishing it, and making it better. So much like controlling where the funds go from the taxpayer's purse, you need to have some controls to say, look, you cannot do this.
So it's very alluring to somebody that doesn't know what they're getting into to come, okay, well, let's just get in over our head and jump in with both feet. And then, I mean, it's not unpredictable that, you know, a lot of people get in beyond their capability. And
yeah, that's very true. I don't know if there's any amount of information you could give certain people, though, that would ever sway them from making a decision, right? I mean, people are wired the way they're wired. Like for instance, the junkyard mechanic, right? That individual doesn't ever see a problem with having 45 vehicles strewn out the lawn in all various stages of disrepair, all that they're going to get to eventually, whereas the next person down the road isn't interested in that at all. So you have heads that are really mashing. So what you do need is some sort of regulation to meet somewhere in the middle, where, like, you know, there has to be
And I think
concessions made.
I think that's where the land use bylaw is really, that's the tool to use, right?
And
but that's where like okay, well, I need a permit to put up a barbed wire fence. That's what I've heard, right? That's been the biggest thing is, well, they're going to make you get a permit to put up a barbed wire fence now. Well, is that factual? Like if I own a quarter section or multiple quarters of land and I need to fence for, my well-established herd of livestock, if I need to fence an area, do I really need to pull a permit for that? Or do I actually need to pull a permit to fence off an area within a rural subdivision?
Exactly, right? That's exactly it.
And I think that's a lot of the facts that are actually behind some of the proposals are getting lost, right? There's some lady out there that they own 0.75 of an acre and they've got 2 donkeys, 7 goats, 50 chickens, is completely incapable of sustaining that animal mass on that footprint of land, and they're all up in arms because the county's saying, well, you really shouldn't have that there. Well, now they're taking away my ability to feed myself, and they want me to cut down my trees, and I don't think anybody in any government is actually saying you should really cut down 50-year-old mature spruce trees, or that. I don't think that's factual, right?
I agree.
Especially not in the climate we have now, where we're talking of climate. See what I did there? But there's a whole conversation around climate change, and so nobody's saying cut down trees like that.
Well, they certainly shouldn't be.
They certainly shouldn't be, and if there is, if there is that discussion, it has to be some very specific context in order to be accurate, right? So I highly doubt that the county's guy's going to drive up the road here and say, oh yeah, you've got a shelter belt here, which how many municipalities funded at no cost to the landowner the shelter belt program for like 25 or 30 years? And they're going to come back and say, you got too many trees there now. We're going to bring in a track home. We're going to get rid of them all for you. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So,
well, certainly not to me.
But at the same time, there is, factually the other side of the argument that Thorhill County is a prime example. They did not engage with their constituents properly. They brought proposals to the table that they third-partied an independent study through a third-party company. And what was that? The GSI or whatever. I forget what it stands for. It's green something.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever, yeah. Right? It's a company I think the company's out of India or something like that. So that's another example, right? So you get people that are supposedly experts, but geographically they're so out of touch, and you pay them a whole bunch of money to come up with these options, and it's just like not even feasible for where you're at.
Right, and this all does segue back into answering questions and delivering the information, because I know a lot of people they worry too about overreach. Like, okay, so once we make this policy in our new land use bylaw and it says permits for like, it's not even, in some cases people worry about how the way it's going to be written, right? So permits for fences, and like you say, okay, does that apply to me trying to fence off my quarter section, or does that apply to the individual in town on a well,
that's easily
7,000 square foot lot that wants to put a 6-wire barbed wire fence around?
Yeah. And it's, if you understand like land use bylaws, if you've ever read a land use bylaw, you just read the provincial budget and talked about how dry it was. Land use bylaws are really, really dry. And why I'm passionate about this is because I actually sit on the land use subdivision appeal board for the local municipality, right? So
okay,
I'm invested in this process, not in the decision-making process, but when somebody comes with a proposal to the municipality and the municipality turns it around, says, no, they can appeal that process, and it comes to the appeal board, and I sit on that committee, right? So I see a lot of those decisions that come through, and usually it's, somebody wants to build some like highly industrialized process in a residential area, right? And you have districts or land use zones, right? There's always like zoning issues, right? Something's an R1 residential, someone's an HC3, like a highway commercial, and then they want to do something completely different in that area because they got a steal of a deal on the land or whatever, and it's strategically positioned within that community that, you know, they could really make it go with the business, but it's not a good fit for everything that's around it.
Yeah.
Right. And so that to me is really what's happening. So you've got areas within, sure, it's a rural municipality, right? It's a county. It's not an urban area, but you've built up an urban area by having 40 houses on a quarter section of land. You can't possibly expect that community now to act as though everybody's going to build a barn and we're all going to keep donkeys and llamas, and like that's not how the world works, right? So yeah, to say that, you know, that they're going to get a permit for a barbed wire fence, no, they're going to say if you're zoned RR2, or rural residential 2, right? If you're zoned that, you would need to get a permit to build a barbed wire fence. But if you're zoned AR1, agricultural residential, fill your boots, do what you got to do, right? Because we've got no oversight over that. Just manage your business, right? So, and that's usually how the bylaws are written. But on the surface, to somebody that's just reading that, if they even read it, and it's not just allegory that they picked up off social media, for them to be able to comprehend it without actual consultation with the you know, subdivision and development board, I don't know how they would. Right?
Well, and that's one thing too, and certainly that's been really brought to light and highlighted over the last few years with all forms of social media and even like the national media at large. There is just way too much clip picking and not looking at things in their entirety, or doing almost no forward research before making a decision yourself. Right? I mean, we see this all the time with people getting actually just write out misinformation, but they've already made up their mind based on that. And you're like, well, no, that's actually not at all what's happening.
Yeah. Well, like the recent social media post that happened on our community page here on Facebook, the Height and Be, I think it was you that screenshotted and sent it to me or whatever. I went on there and I joined the group, and there was a lady saying they are coming to do this, and they are already enforcing this before it's even pushed through. And anytime somebody says the word they in a conversation without naming a specific individual, organization, group, person, whoever it is, I immediately distrust that person, because it's the boogeyman theory, right? They're coming for who the fuck are they?
Yeah.
Who are they? Name them. Name your demon, whoever it is. Show me who it is, right? So I found that post, and I of course I question it. I'm like, who are they? Show me where they are. And I get screenshots from, you know, somebody else's social media post. Okay, well, send me a link to the government website, to the county proposed bylaws. Send me that link. Well, and then I get a screenshot of, well, this happened over in Winfield. Where the fuck is Winfield? It's not in the county of Grand Prairie. Well, they're already trying to enforce this, and the bylaws not even pushed through. Well, who are they? Enforcement? You know, because I know county enforcement's not enforcing anything. They're not going to do anything that's not backed up by bylaw, because you take it to court and it's going to get thrown out.
Yeah.
So it's the boogeyman theory, and it's all just fear mongering and nonsense. And, you know, granted, you do have to be prepared and ahead of it, and understand what the consequences and the implications and the impact to you potentially are. But if all you're going to do is, you know, saber rattle and fear monger on social media, and not actually go have a coffee with your county councillor, you know, and just say, hey, I've heard this. Is it true? Is there any, you know, because these are my concerns. And maybe, you know, maybe you get a letter in the mail that says, you know, whatever, right? But if enough people actually do that and hold their municipal councillors, again, it's making decisions at the lowest operational level, you're going to have the greatest impact.
Yeah.
But if you distance yourself from it and try to get people to come in and, you know, they get everybody riled up, well, if you're a politician and you see an angry mob, what are you going to do?
You generally don't want to go hang out there.
You don't want to hang out there. And any decision you make is going to be very reactionary and probably not the best overall decision for the community.
Well, absolutely.
And the loudest voice in the room is not always the most correct voice in the room as well.
That is very true.
Yeah.